Part 161. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 1601. Chapter 1601 Extra Chapter of Xiaofeng and His Wife, 129. Impossible. Jun Chenai quickly broke Yu Lingfeng's guess. Wrong. Ci is so infatuated with Fanyan. Even if Fanyan dies, he will not be with Lan 11 so soon. Yu Lingfeng sighed. What I said about being together is not the kind of togetherness you understand. Jun Chenai had an epiphany. You mean, Lan 11 didn't just disappear, but was looking for a way to heal wrong Ci. It may sound incredible, but Lan 11's medical skills can not only treat physical pain, she is also very good at treating psychological pain. Yu Lingfeng has seen the power of Lan 11. After all, she is a person who has been taught by the most famous medical organization. Her level of medical skills is beyond what ordinary people can expect. What you said seems to make sense. Jun Chenai nodded thoughtfully. Wait a minute, Xia Ying's call is coming. Before Jun Chenai could answer, Yu Lingfeng hung up the phone without hesitation. Have you contacted Qian Yanjiu? Xia Ying nodded. The contact was successful, but when Qian Yanjiu heard that Qian Yins was kidnapped, he thanked me for informing him of the good news. Yu Lingfeng. Are these two people still so naive? So she's not going to help? Yu Lingfeng expressed doubts. Xia Ying breathed a long sigh of relief. He asked you to contact him. I have already sent you the phone number. Okay, I'll hang up first. Yu Lingfeng hung up the phone, and then dialed the phone number Xia Ying sent him. The other party answered the phone after ringing 3 times. Yu Lingfeng. The ending sound is slightly raised, and there is a bit of joking in the words. It's me, do you have anything to do with me? Ha! Qian Yanjiu was inexplicably excited. Let's not beat around the bush, let's open the skylight and speak openly. It's okay if you want me to save people. Come out with me, make an appointment to compete, and I will save people. Yu Lingfeng is ashamed. So is this guy still persistent after 7 years? And you know clearly that the result every time is failure. Why are you so stubborn? When? Yu Lingfeng replied with a cold tone. Any time is fine. You decide the time and place. I will accompany you until the end. Qian Yanjiu looked confident, and Yu Lingfeng almost thought he would lose. Then come out now and we will fight quickly. Yu Lingfeng said expressionlessly. This is also strange. The people who were kidnapped were clearly Qian Yanjiu's brother and sister-in-law. Why did he need to come forward before he could save them? How old is Qian Yanjiu? How come he still thinks like a child? Qian Yanjiu showed displeasure on his face. What do you mean? Do you look down on me so much? Are you ready to challenge me without preparing properly? I just want to remind you that I am different from the past. I will look at you with new eyes after 3 days apart. Do you understand? Yu Lingfeng raised his eyebrows and said, Hey, that's amazing. Now you can use idioms. You even use 2 idioms in 1 sentence. It's really made a lot of progress. Qian Yanjiu's head was filled with smoke. Yu Lingfeng, don't be too arrogant. Damn it, has there been no change at all after so many years? Can someone with a poisonous mouth take over the world? Is this man arrogant? Don't look down on people, okay. He is Qinche's gang leader, okay. Is it good to be number 1 on the killer list? Yu Lingfeng, I promise you, I will challenge you now. I will beat you until you kneel down and beg for mercy. Qian Yanjiu was furious and shouted at the other end of the phone. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 1602. Chapter 1602 Extra Chapter of Xiaofeng and His Wife, 130. Well, I hope the slap in the face won't be too harsh. Yu Lingfeng responded calmly. Qian Yanjia was so angry that he immediately hung up the phone. Then a minute later, Yu Lingfeng's mobile phone received a message from Qian Yanjiu. The time and location are displayed above, allowing Yu Lingfeng to quickly go and fight. Yu Lingfeng looked at the message and curled his lips. There were no typos. It seemed that the boy had really changed. Yu Lingfeng came home. When Xiaojin saw Yu Lingfeng coming back, she excitedly ran forward and used it as a leg pendant. Wherever Yu Lingfeng went, Xiaojin followed her and refused to let go for a moment. Xia Ying smiled when she saw this. Xiaojin, what are you doing? I don't want daddy to leave again. Xiaojin said very sincerely. Yu Lingfeng spread his hands helplessly. Xiaojin, be good, didn't daddy promise you? He will never leave you again. Xiaojin pursed her lips and said nothing. He is not a child anymore. Yu Lingfeng's tone and expression when he just left showed that it was dangerous for him to leave this time. But fortunately, Yu Lingfeng came back safely, so Xiaojin hugged Yu Lingfeng tightly. Lingfeng was afraid that he would leave again. So what did Qian Yanjiu say to you? Xia Ying asked Yu Lingfeng. Yu Lingfeng laughed when he thought of it. What else can that guy do to me? I'm looking for you to compete again. Xia Ying just asked tentatively, but Yu Lingfeng nodded, dumbfounded. After so many years, he still regards me as his target. However, I didn't tell him before that this is in vain, and he will never do it for the rest of his life. Might beat me. Then what? Then he just thought I was provoking him, and even became more determined to defeat me. Xia Ying laughed. Qian Yanjiu is really not that stubborn. That is to say. Yu Lingfeng also smiled. So you agreed? Otherwise, that guy won't give up. What else can I do besides agreeing to him? Then when will you compete? Xia Ying asked again. I'll go there in a moment. So fast? Of course it's going to be soon. The lives of Qianyans and 11 Ju are still uncertain. Makes sense. Xiaojin listened to Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng talking back and forth, rolled her eyes, and then asked Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng, Papa, who are you going to compete with? And Uncle 11 Ju, what happened to your godfather? Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng were startled, and then they realized that this little guy was still there. Yu Lingfeng stroked Xiaojin's head and said softly, Daddy is going to compete with an uncle. After the competition, he will come back to accompany Xiaojin and his mother, okay. As for Uncle 11 Ju and his godfather, Xiaojin, don't worry, Yu 11 Ju, Uncle Ju is a robot, how could he be in danger? Xiaojin tilted her head and thought about it. It seemed like that, Uncle Zihu was a robot. In the movies, robots are equipped with various rays and laser weapons, which can catch humans off guard. But, Daddy, I want to go too. I want to watch Daddy compete in martial arts. Yu Lingfeng was stunned. Xiaojin must be obedient. Xiaojin is a child, and children cannot watch martial arts competitions. Is there any danger? Xiaojin asked innocently. Yu Lingfeng shook his head. How could there be danger? Xiaojin pouted and became unhappy. Since there is no danger, why can't Xiaojin go and see it? Yu Lingfeng. Xiaojin, is it really okay for you to be so evil at such a young age? It's okay, I'll take Xiaojin with me anyway. I haven't seen Qian Yanjiu for a long time. It's just a good time to catch up on old times. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1603. Chapter 1603 Extra Chapter of Xiafeng and His Wife, 131. Although Xia Ying said this, Yu Lingfeng was still a little worried. After all, it was Qian Yanjiu. What if the process was violent? Wouldn't that lead Xiaojin to evil? However, when I thought about it, Even if Qian Yanjia wanted to be and violent, the whole process was under his control, and it seemed that he would not be violent. It might even be fun. So, after thinking for a moment, Yu Lingfeng nodded, "Okay, you take Xiaojin with you. Yeah, you can watch daddy competing in martial arts." Xiaojin cheered happily. The purpose of his father going to a martial arts competition should be that his father's martial arts are very powerful, right? Xiaojin was overjoyed, as if she had discovered a new continent in Yu Lingfeng. She was so happy that she gave a thumbs up, smiled at Yu Lingfeng and said, "Daddy, you are so cool." Yu Lingfeng grinned, "Of course, it's the first day you met your father." "Haha, Daddy will also teach me martial arts from now on, okay?" Xiaojin raised her face and asked Yu Lingfeng excitedly. Yu Lingfeng nodded, "Okay, when Xiaojin grows up, Dad will teach you martial arts." When Xia Ying and Yu Lingfeng arrived at the competition venue with Xiaojin, Qian Yanjiu had already put on his samurai uniform solemnly, standing upright like a big tree, with a straight face and a serious expression. Yu Lingfeng couldn't help but want to laugh. Looking at Yu Lingfeng, Qian Yanjiu found that Yu Lingfeng actually brought his family with him, as if he were on an outing, and did not respect his opponent at all. He even came here wearing casual clothes. Qian Yanjiu was so angry that the corners of his eyes twitched. Yu Lingfeng obviously didn't notice this and even greeted Qian Yanjiu. And he said to Xiaojin beside him, "Call Uncle Ajiu." "Uncle Ajiu." Xiaojin smiled sweetly. Qian Yanjiu glared at Yu Lingfeng angrily, "What kind of uncle are you calling my brother Hofu?" Xiaojin's smile immediately stopped, thinking that this brother is so cruel. Dad will definitely beat him to pieces later. "Well, then you call me uncle." Yu Lingfeng raised his eyebrows. Qian Yanjiu's face froze. Yes, the seniority would be messed up. Then with a dark face, he went over and touched Xiaojin's hair. "Be good, just call me Uncle Ju, it's too ugly." Xiaojin looked at Qian Yanjiu with her bright eyes and nodded. Qian Yanjiu looked at Xiaojin for a long time, then looked at Yu Lingfeng. How can such a disgusting person give birth to such a cute child? Yu Lingfeng curled her lips and said, "My cuteness is like Xia Ying's, and my personality is like mine, so be careful. It's going to be a disaster for you." Qian Yanjiu replied with a cold face. "Thank you for the compliment." Yu Lingfeng said calmly, "After all, Xiaojin will be your goal in the future." Qian Yanjiu. "What do you mean? Are you saying that I am not even as good as your son?" Thousands of yen and 97 knots. 10 years from now, Xiaojin will be your goal. Qian Yanjiu lowered his head and looked at his goal in 10 years, smiling at him. Qian Yankija simply stopped talking to Yu Lingfeng. "Stop talking nonsense, I can knock you down today." So, Qian Yanjiu and Yu Lingfeng began to take their positions. "Do you know what I have been doing these years? I am practicing in seclusion. I have been in seclusion for so many years, and I have great strength. I will definitely be able to defeat you," Qian Yanjiu said aggressively. Yu Lingfeng frowned. "Then do you know what I was doing before?" "What?" "Strive to maintain force value." Qian Yanjiu. "This guy will die if he doesn't humiliate him." End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1604. Chapter 1604 Extra Chapter of Xiafeng and his wife, 132. Xia Ying held her forehead and expressed that she was very tired. Can't these two adults be more mature? Xiaojin is not as naive as the two of them. So, Xia Ying and Xiaojin sat aside and watched the two of them compete in force. Xia Ying took out a pack of melon seeds from her bag, and Xiaojin took out a lollipop from her pocket, then sucked on it while looking at the two people 3 meters apart with her big eyes open. Qian Yanjiu's face was full of anger and seriousness, and he stared at Yu Lingfeng motionlessly. Yu Lingfeng had a nonchalant expression, giving people a boring mentality of starting early and finishing work early. Qian Yanjia glanced at the two melon eaters and said, "Can you two please respect us? What if this is watching a movie? You actually brought food with you, so why not bring a drink along the way?" Then, Xia Ying took out a tube of Coke from her pocket, took a sip, smiled at Qian Yanjiu, and said, "It's okay, just ignore us." Yu Lingfeng spread his hands and said, "I don't care." Qian Yanjiu rolled his eyes at Yu Lingfeng. "Isn't there a normal person in the family? Even the little one is like this, how abominable." Qian Yanjiu breathed a sigh of relief and told himself over and over again to calm down and not to be careless with this group of people. "I said you were just having a fight, why are there so many other things?" Yu Lingfen became a little annoyed when he saw that he didn't start for a long time, but instead found all sorts of troubles, and complained. "Start as soon as you start." After Qian Yanjiu said these words, his expression began to change, as if he had really changed into a different person. The aura around him immediately became stronger, and even the birds in the tree were frightened from their nests. There was a scream inside and flew out. Yu Lingfen narrowed his eyes and curved the corners of his mouth, as if he was interested. When Yu Lingfeng and Qian Yanjiu officially started to fight, Xia Ying and Xiao Jian, who were still leisurely, suddenly put down the food in their hands and started to read seriously. Xia Ying had seen the two of them compete in martial arts before. Qian Yanjiu had been pestering Yu Lingfeng for 3 days before, wanting to compete with him, but every time, Yu Lingfeng defeated Qian Yanjiu with just 3 moves and 2 moves. It only takes a few minutes. There was no sense of expectation at all, but this time, Xia Ying felt that Qian Yanjiu had really become stronger. No wonder he looked so solemn at the beginning. It seems that he has indeed been targeting Yu Lingfeng in the past few years and practicing in seclusion. As for Xiaojin, she was completely stunned. He had only seen so-called martial arts competitions in fantasy martial arts dramas before, and Xiaojin knew that they were all acting, fake, and could not happen in real life. But after watching the martial arts competition between Yu Lingfeng and Qian Yanjiu, Xiaojin suddenly wondered whether there really was a martial arts secret in this world. Otherwise, Xiaojin really had no way to explain the scene he saw in front of him. "Wow, Daddy is flying!" Xiaojin exclaimed. Qian Yanjiu also looked stunned. "Is Yu Lingfeng still a human? He actually jumped 3 meters into the air?" So, while Qian Yanjiu was still shocked, Yu Lingfeng rushed forward, strangled him by the neck, and then said with a cold face, "You lose." Qian Yanjiu was completely stunned. Xiaojin and Xia Ying didn't speak for a long time. Although Qian Yanjiu lost, I have to say that this fight was really exciting. Qian Yanjiu lowered his eyes and said in frustration, "I lost." End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1605. Chapter 1605 Extra Chapter of Xiaofeng and His Wife, 133. Qian Yanjiu lost, and he was convinced of his defeat. This time it was a test, which lasted 10 minutes. Yu Lingfeng was also surprised that Qian Yanjiu could match his moves for 10 minutes, even though Yu Lingfeng had been defensive rather than offensive. Qian Yanjiu also knew this, so he was convinced of his defeat. Yu Lingfeng's only attack caused him to lose directly. Even if Qian Yanjiu were to contact him for another 7 or 70 years, he would not be able to defeat Yu Lingfeng. For one thing, he would never be able to practice Qinggong like Yu Lingfeng, who could jump 3 meters high. "Are you still human?" Qian Yanjiu's eyes flickered and he stared at Yu Lingfeng. "That's right, is he still a human? How could a normal person escape gravity and jump so high?" Since Qian Yanjiu met Yu Lingfeng, his outlook on life has been refreshed over and over again. Yu Lingfeng, this man, is not only mysterious, but simply terrifying. Haunted to the extreme. Xia Ying took a sip of Coke, and then thought to herself, it's not good. Yu Lingfeng flew directly in front of him. Couldn't Qian Yanjiu be scared to death? I'm almost scared now. Yu Lingfeng didn't have any expression on his face. Instead, he slowly began to arrange his clothes and said, so when are you going to save Qianyans and 11 Ju? Qian Yanjiu was still immersed in the shock just now and couldn't extricate himself. He didn't speak for a long time. In the end, he just asked over and over again, who are you and how did you do it? Yu Lingfeng knew that if this curious baby didn't tell him, he would probably have to pester him with questions in the future. So, Yu Lingfeng said, if you want to learn, I can teach you. You can help me rescue Qianyans and 11 Ju first. Qian Yanjiu frowned, you teach me? Teach me to fly. Yu Lingfeng's face darkened. He had obviously used so many moves, but he only remembered which one of them flew. Qian Yanjiu boasted that he had learned all the secrets in the world in the past 7 years, so he was confident that he could defeat Yu Lingfeng. However, reality gave him a wake-up call. This guy can actually fly. Has it not evolved well and retained the genes in the genetic chain, or has this guy's genes mutated? Obviously Qian Yanjiu believes in the former more. At this time, Xiaojin had already run over with a smile, hugging Yu Lingfeng's thigh, with a small face full of admiration. Daddy, you are so awesome, I suddenly believe you now, Daddy. It's a superhuman thing. Superman can fly, and Daddy can fly, so Superman is equal to Daddy, and Daddy is equal to Superman. Well, there's nothing wrong with it. Xia Ying looked at Qian Yanjiu, who was still in shock. Flying is impossible, but other things are still possible. Yu Lingfeng replied. Then how can you fly? Qian Yanjiu was obsessed with this point and asked Yu Lingfeng repeatedly. Yu Lingfeng thought for a while, combined Qian Yanjiu's IQ level, and told a lie that was in line with his understanding. Maybe it's a natural talent, doctors can't explain it, maybe it's a genetic mutation. Hold. Qian Yanjiu suddenly felt happy, like a primary school student who got the question right. I knew. How could you be a normal person, with a genetic mutation? Why the don't I mutate? Yu Lingfeng breathed a long sigh of relief. Well, it turned out to be the same Qian Yanjiu who believed everything he said. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1606. Chapter 1606 Extra Chapter of Xiaofeng and His Wife, 134. Yu Lingfeng and others found a tea house, sat down to drink tea, and chatted about rescuing Qianyans and 11 Ju. So you started to think it was me? Qian Yanjiu curled his lips and was very unhappy. Does he seem to be such a boring person? He has obviously been practicing in seclusion, right? It's just a suspicion, but based on the way you gloated after Xia Ying told you that Qianyans was kidnapped, it makes me think that you may have been planning this matter and haven't taken any action. Qian Yanjiu. They must have made some enemies. Qian Yanjiu took a sip of tea, looked out the window, and continued, besides, didn't that guy Qianyans always say that he is very powerful in martial arts? He can actually be kidnapped, so he is still a bad guy after all. So who is the other party, who is the person who can kidnap Qianyans? Qian Yanjiu spread his hands and clarified, I can prove that it was not done by our Qinsha people. Except for me, the rest of Qinsha are quite respectful to that guy Qianyans. Although he is a traitor, he has not done anything. It is harmful to the organization, and after all, he is the heir who has served before, so they have no reason to kidnap Qianyans. Qian Yanjiu sounded very unhappy when he said this. I just don't understand why everyone respects that traitor so much. Qian Yanjiu wants to skin him and get cramps. Then do you know about the shadow hunters? Qian Yanjiu snorted coldly, this organization hasn't closed down yet. Yu Lingfeng darkened his face, he was indeed a deadly enemy. When it comes to shadow hunters, people in Qincha are all so evil. Even if they haven't gone bankrupt, they should still be hanging on. You see, their gang leader left a few years ago and is still locked up now. They are leaderless and a bunch of chickens. What can they do? Yu Lingfeng suddenly fell silent. Then do you know Rong Ci? Do you have any news about him? Xia Ying asked Qian Yanjiu. Qian Yanjiu shook his head. I told you that I spent those few years practicing in seclusion, but you don't know what seclusion is. Do you practice? Qian Yanjiu rolled his eyes gorgeously. Why doesn't anyone understand him? So what happened to Rong Ci? Qian Yanjiu was puzzled. What happened to you in the years when I left? Each one of them was either missing or kidnapped. They asked me if I knew it. It was obvious that I was just an outsider. It's because too many things happened, so I rushed to the doctor in a hurry. Ask around, maybe there will be someone who knows. Xia Ying sighed and said. By the way, how's Sanskrit? Qian Yanjiu hated Fanyan to the core of his heart for killing several of his right-hand men, but when he wanted to do it again and again before, he was either stopped by Yu Lingfeng or organized by Rong Ci. In short, a bunch of people indulged him. Looking at the female devil also made Qian Yanjiu very puzzled. It was obvious that he was the murderer. Everyone in the world didn't know that the witch who raised poisonous insects could kill people without blood. How many people died in her hands, but she didn't know how many people had been blessed to meet her. A bunch of people protecting her. She is dead. Hearing Yu Lingfeng's words, Qian Yanjiu, who was drinking tea, paused. Then he raised his head and looked at Yu Lingfeng. He waited for a long time before speaking. Dead? Didn't Lan 11 say he would cure her? End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1607. Chapter 1607 Extra Chapter of Xiafeng and His Wife, 135. So, things are unpredictable. Yu Lingfeng said, then raised his eyebrows and added, it's like I didn't expect you to be able to fight me for 10 minutes before losing. Qian Yanjiu's face turned dark. This guy is so arrogant. Although what is said is true. So, after Fanyan died, Rongkai disappeared, and then Qinyans and Zihu were kidnapped not long after. You mean the two are related? Yu Lingfeng asked. Qian Yanjiu pursed his lips, didn't you lead me to think in this direction? I think Rong Ci is the bloodline of the former gang leader of the Shadow Hunters. After all, their group of people are all controlled by him, and they are devoted to the former gang leader who knows what he will do to Rong Ci. Qian Yanjiu nodded, what you said makes sense. According to their urine, they must still miss what happened back then. For example, they want to take revenge and rescue Jun Di. Rong Ci is very likely to do so. Under their control. I think Fanyan is dead, and Rong Ci is probably seeking death. Those people will definitely not let Rong Ci die. Therefore, Rong Ci may be imprisoned by the Shadow Hunters, or something, but it's in their hands. I think so too, but I just can't figure out what value Qian Yanzi and 11 Ju have for them. Qian Yanjiu thought for a while, then snorted and smiled. Of course. If something happens to Qian Yins, we Qincha will definitely not ignore it. 11 Ju is caught, and as Jun Di, the former gang leader of the Shadow Hunters, you will definitely not sit still and wait for death. Yu Lingfeng Jing Qian Yanjiu said this and suddenly realized, you are right. They captured Qian Yins in order to blackmail Qian Cha into cooperating with them to deal with me. As for 11 Ju, it was their last bargaining chip. They knew that I would not leave 11 Ju alone, so they took him as a hostage. Qian Yanjiu nodded, they are quite smart. Qian Yanjiu glanced at Xia Ying and Xiao Jin, and then said, Xia Ying and Xiao Jin have been following you, so it's hard to make a move. 11 Zhu and Qianyan Zi are now in pairs, so they happen to be captured together. It saves trouble. Qianyan Jiu then showed a disgusted expression. These two people are really stupid. How do they know that group of people are still planning to take revenge? Xia Ying said. It's just stupid. Qianyan Jiu said without explanation. So now that everything has been analyzed, do you have any plans? Calling me out is obviously not a good idea. Besides, I might even cooperate with them. Cooperate to save Qianyan Jiu? Yu Lingfeng raised his eyebrows. Qianyan Jiu's face turned cold and he said, forget it, what do you want to do? Yu Lingfeng smiled, he was indeed his brother. You first pretend to agree with their methods, and then cooperate with me inside and outside, and catch them all in one fell swoop. The words sound good, but what are the specific plans? Qianyan Jiu said. Let's see what they plan to do first. At this time, Qianyan Jiu's cell phone rang. Qianyan Jiu lowered his head and saw that it was a text message. After reading it, Qianyan Jiu directly raised his head and said to Yu Lingfeng, the action has begun over there. How to say? Qianyan Jiu showed the content of the text message to Yu Lingfeng. Probably it means that Qianyin's is in their hands and they have arranged to meet Qianyan Jiu at a place. Qianyan Jiu sighed, everyone seems to know my phone number. It seems I have to get a new one, besides, can I really not go? End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1608. Chapter 1608 Extra Chapter of Xiafeng and His Wife, 136. Xia Ying's face darkened, she was indeed her brother. If Qianyin's knew that Qianyan Jiu was reacting like this, he might be so angry that he would die. Oh, but Qianyin's may be expected. Then after you meet with them, contact me and plan a specific plan. Yu Lingfeng said. Qianyan Jiu nodded, then stood up and prepared to leave. But before leaving, he came to Xiaojin and grabbed Xiaojin's soft face. Tisk, this child is so good looking. Qianyan Jiu glanced at Yu Lingfeng again as he spoke, with contempt on his face, when you grow up, you will be just like your father, and he will be a monster who harms thousands of girls. A certain goblin grimaced, and then retorted slowly, that's better than someone who has been single for more than 20 years. A certain mother's solo. Xia Ying didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and touched Xiaojin's head. Qianyan Jiu snorted and left. Yu Lingfeng and Xia Ying also went back. On the way back, Xia Ying thought of Qianyin's brother Zihu, and also thought of the conversation between Yu Lingfeng and Qianyan Jiu just now, and asked, so Zihu and Qianyin's shouldn't be in danger now, right? Since we are being used as hostages and as targets of blackmail, our basic personal safety can still be guaranteed. Yu Lingfeng nodded, if Qianyan Jiu and I's guesses are correct, there shouldn't be any danger. But after not seeing each other for so many years, no one can tell what Xiaojiju is thinking about among those people. What should we do? I started investigating before Qianyan Jiu saw them. It would be best to find their whereabouts earlier. Xia Ying leaned her head on Yu Lingfeng's arm and sighed softly, I thought that after so many years, all the storms in the past had passed, but I never thought that such a day would still come. So, the root cause should have been eradicated from the beginning. Yu Lingfeng stared ahead with sharp eyes. Xiaojin had fallen asleep in the car, covered with a fluffy blanket, and her even breathing made the blanket rise and fall. Yu Lingfeng looked at Xiaojin and thought silently. At least the things they had experienced before, Yu Lingfeng didn't want Xiaojin to experience them again. Therefore, in order for Xiaojin to grow up without any worries, Yu Lingfeng must deal with the remnants of the past as soon as possible. 2 days later, Qianyan Jiu contacted Yu Lingfeng. Yu Lingfeng's guess was correct, it was the shadow hunter who did it. The purpose of the shadow hunters is to control Lingfeng. Had it not been for Yu Lingfeng, their shadow hunters would not have declined to this point. In the past 7 years, they have always wanted to seek revenge on Yu Lingfeng. It's just that Yu Lingfeng seemed to have disappeared from the world during those 7 years, without any information. It wasn't until recently that they found Yu Lingfeng's location. After 7 years of hiding it, it's time to put an end to what happened back then. Yu Lingfeng, do you know who I saw? Qian Yanjiu's voice suddenly became deeper. Yu Lingfeng's heart twitched, as if he had guessed something, but he still asked patiently, who is it? Wrong Ci. Yu Lingfeng breathed a long sigh of relief. He guessed it. It's just that he doesn't want to believe it, so things become more and more complicated. Wrong Ci's memory seems to have been modified, Qian Yanjiu said. No, in other words, he seems to have been brainwashed. The person I met that day was Wrong Ci. He was completely different from before. His whole personality, your aura and demeanor have all changed. I guess the Shadow Hunter wants to use Wrong Ci to deal with you. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1609. Chapter 1609 Extra Chapter of Xiaofeng and His Wife, 137. Yu Lingfeng suddenly said infatuatedly, I really miss the time when I had no feelings for anyone except Xia Ying. So being a human being is a very troublesome thing, with all kinds of emotional ties. If it were Yu Lingfeng back then, no one except Xia Ying would make Yu Lingfeng feel any move in his heart. But at this moment, he had to worry about Wrong Ci's life safety, walking on thin ice and being cautious. Yu Lingfeng felt like he was bound by an invisible rope and couldn't move at all. In every move you make, you must consider the feelings of the person opposite you. So, in this case, what are you going to do? Qian Yanjiu asked, his tone cold. As long as they find an opportunity, they will definitely not let Yu Lingfeng go. Qian Yanjiu became slightly worried. Yu Lingfeng smiled slightly and said, it doesn't matter. Even if a group of Qian Yanjiu comes, they can't do anything to me. What's more, the average combat effectiveness of that group of people is far inferior to yours. Qian Yanjiu's face darkened. Arrogant men are really annoying. This is not the time to show off. Qian Yanjiu was very serious and warned Yu Lingfeng, since they have done this, they must have prepared a perfect strategy. If you fall into their trap like this, that's the real trick. Yu Lingfeng curled his lips and smiled. It was a pity that they could not calculate that Yu Lingfeng was not human at all. He comes from a distant planet and has abilities that even those people can't imagine. Since they are provoking them to the end, Yu Lingfeng will accompany them to the end. He has never been afraid. I know, Yu Lingfeng said lightly, so what did they tell you and how do they ask you to cooperate? Qian Yanjiu shook his head helplessly, it's nothing, you just want me to take you to a place. That place is covered with a dragnet. They want to capture you alive. You can guess what will happen next. After Qian Yanjiu finished speaking, he added, think clearly and don't do anything stupid impulsively. You have a wife and children, so you must be steady. I know, why are you such a mother-in-law? Yu Lingfeng chuckled, deliberately playing off, besides, if I die, won't you have no opponent? Qian Yanjiu rolled his eyes. This Yu Lingfeng is really weird. Even now, he still doesn't forget to tease him. Yes, there is no opponent, but I have no room for improvement. So just live a good life for me, and I will defeat you one day. Yu Lingfeng smiled. Tomorrow, I will go to that place with you, just pretend you don't know anything, and then you will see how I deal with them. Qian Yanjiu. Yu Lingfeng, do you know that the consequences of failing to show off will be death? They all said that there was a dragnet over there, and they all said that it was the top masters of an entire killer organization. No matter how powerful Yu Lingfeng is, he is still outnumbered, not to mention the unexpected trap. Qian Yanjiu simply couldn't understand Yu Lingfeng's blind confidence. I know. This is not pretentious, I am serious, Yu Lingfeng continued, expressionless. Tomorrow you will know how much I suppress myself every time I compete with you. Qian Yanjiu. What kind of weird law is it that you have to be humiliated every time you talk to Yu Lingfeng? After Yu Lingfeng hung up the phone, a pair of hands behind him hugged his waist. Then, her soft body pressed against his back. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 1610. Chapter 1610 Extra Chapter of Xiaofeng and His Wife, 138. I'll be fine. Yu Lingfeng said to Xia Ying behind her in an exceptionally calm tone. Xia Ying had already been standing outside the door, listening to the phone call between him and Qian Yanjiu. Yu Lingfeng also realized it early on. He also knew that Xia Ying must be very nervous at the moment and worried about his safety. Xia Ying's nose felt sore. What if something really happens? Yu Lingfeng turned around and met Xia Ying's red eyes, with emotion in her eyes. Nothing goes wrong, I will be fine. If it's really not possible, I will still know how to run away. Xia Ying said no more, just lowered her eyes. His eyes gradually filled with tears. Yu Lingfeng leaned over and kissed Xia Ying's head. Don't worry, the people I care about most in this world are you and Xiajin. I can't leave you alone in this world, I will definitely, it's fine. Xia Ying nodded seriously, raised her head, and looked at Yu Lingfeng with sparkling eyes. Yu Lingfeng leaned over and took Xia Ying's lips into her mouth. The next day, when Yu Lingfeng went out, he told Xiajin to buy him candy. Xiaojin happily jumped 3 feet high and cheered, okay. Daddy, I want a lot of candies. Chocolate ones, assorted ones, pineapple, strawberry, and banana ones, all of them. Well, I know, Dad will buy you many, many different candies. Yu Lingfeng said, leaning over and grabbing Xiajin's face. Xia Ying looked at Yu Lingfeng and said, I'll wait for you to come back. Come back soon. Yu Lingfeng kissed Xia Ying on the forehead, I will do it. Xiajin looked at Yu Lingfeng and Xia Ying, then took Yu Lingfeng's arm and said, Daddy, Xiajin wants to kiss them too. Xiaojin said, raising her face, waiting for Yu Lingfeng's kiss. Yu Lingfeng smiled and kissed Xiaojin's cheek. Xiajin's face is soft and very cute. When Yu Lingfeng and Qian Yanjiu met, Qian Yanjiu still had a dark face. What's your expression? Yu Lingfeng glanced at Qian Yanjiu and asked. I respect you for looking like a man. Qian Yanjiu and Yu Lingfeng walked side by side. Yu Lingfeng ignored him and asked, you agreed to cooperate with them, then when do they plan to release Qian Yins? By the time I get you to your destination, Qian Yins will have returned home safely. Qian Yanjiu continued, as for 11 Ju, they are still in their hands, and they are just a hostage to force you to submit. Guessed. Yu Lingfeng said. So, to put it 10,000 steps back, even if you can really beat 100 with one, what about 11 Ju, what should 11 Ju do? Yu Lingfeng glanced at Qian Yanjiu and said, first, there is no need to take so many steps back. Second, there is no problem in saving 11 Ju by picking 100. Qian Yanjiu rolled his eyes and said, blow it, blow it. It's up to you what you do when the time comes. I won't come to rescue you. Yu Lingfeng looked at Qian Yanjiu and smiled. He said that someone said he would not come to the rescue, but in fact he came over wearing clothes that were particularly suitable for fighting. It was clear at a glance what he was thinking in his heart. Yu Lingfeng didn't expose it and said nothing. The place where the shadow hunter and Yu Lingfeng met was a small forest, which was indeed a very suitable place for setting traps. Wait a minute. Qian Yanjia was still walking when Yu Lingfeng beside him suddenly stopped and shouted at him seriously. Qian Yanjia looked back at Yu Lingfeng, trap. Yu Lingfeng nodded. Did I step on it? Qian Yanjia shouted in his heart, F***ck. Are you so unlucky? End of this chapter.